the whole time.
No,
I'll
he
just
won't.
disappear.
He's not a mannequin.
He's disappearing right now. We are going to jump into Athletico Esports versus Abyss Academy as we move into this pick and ban phase. Of course, Abyss Academy will have Swaith in the jungle as well. Swatheris used to be on Fortnite. Couple of splits ago was a Yi one trick, unfortunately got banned last split. However, we're seeing the return of him. We're seeing the love join back in on this roster, but of course KO and Kuden down in the bottom lane. Gunkrab and BWAC as well. Gunkrab, is a solo queue 80 carry who's been rising through the ranks, but we're still looking at that top side of the map for Athletico
and
Esports.
Unfortunately, we have a little bit of a downside inside this game in the sense that Mendrix really does love Gunkrab, wants to hype him up.
Put emphasis on that. Mendrix.
He's the one who's been putting emphasis on Gunkrab. But unfortunately, Mendrix isn't here, so I won't be hyping him up to heights unimaginable. We'll have to hear it back on the analyst list once this game is over. But going back over Swaith, he's not just a Master Yi one trick. He can do much more, and he's reformed throughout the splits.
I love the Yasuo ban coming through from Abyss Academy. More important than the Galio. They say Zach, Yasuo, and then Galio, and those three OP picks are going to be taken away with the Elise first pick for Athletico Esports.
Yeah, and Dan Danes just performed massively on Elise. His two champions throughout the entire competitive seasons that we've seen him were Elise and Rek'Sai. So to be able to give him Elise, who's extremely strong in the current meta, just because her early game is almost unrivaled, and she has a smooth path to 40% CDR and becomes a cocoon bot late game, it's something that you really got to pay attention to on the other side.
And it's going to be the Varus locked in straight away as well. Another champion that has had that priority like the Ashe is the Varus. You know, those utility ultimates with Lee Sin and Cassiopeia taken off the board, especially aimed at Frey. I think we have a lot of opportunities. Going to be the Kha'Zix locked in for Swaith.
Yeah, and the upside of picking Varus over Ashe is the fact that you get a whole lot of lane priority.
Yeah,
you lose out when it comes to your ultimate, because Ashe ultimate, you really prioritize that over. But wow, look at that rotation.
Bedoink, I assume that's going to be Bedoink on the Vladimir there.
It would have to be, yeah.
I mean, unless 528 puts it up at the top lane. I remember
I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen old school Vladimir up in the top lane for a little bit of a while, but Caitlyn has a priority as well. I mean, usually it is going to be that Ashe, but it is a different meta here in Oceania. You know, people go for, okay, it's the OCS, we need comfort over what the meta dictates, and right now it seems like Caitlyn definitely fits in that category while also fitting into a high A-tier pick.
Yeah, and when we're talking about skills in ADCs, a lot of people tend to be glossed over because you think ADC, it's a plug-and-play role. You just have to have a lot of micro. You got to know where to stand in the middle of a team fight, output damage. When not to output damage, you don't die in return. But
sounds like a lot.
Yeah, when Gunkrab is hyped up this much, I'm going to hold it to both him and Mendrix to see how he performs in this game. Caitlyn is one of those champions who you can outperform a lot, where you don't waste your headshot passive because you have something like the 90 caliber net, also your Yordle snap traps. If you can use those headshots in tandem with yours, you effectively become somebody with the burst of a Graves at 650 range. So if Gunkrab manages to use all of those, then that's something that will really solidify his name in the OCS ADC pool.
I think there might be still a very high tier pick for him right now, but Frey will get the Orianna. I am a little bit worried about that. One of his most played champions in the OPL regular split at the start of this year. So we'll see if he can carry on that one. Jarvan, Fiora taken off the board. Kennen, and with the last ban, I believe, getting flaunted out. I don't know what happened there, but they're going to lose a ban and they're going to lock down Renekton.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they just didn't want to ban anything away. They just thought...
That would be right.
We've limited them to the point where we need them. They pick up the Renekton because they simply want to dominate top lane. More or less, it's extremely safe because there are only a handful of counters, and of course, Kennen is off the map, so you're not going to have that one available for you. And worst case scenario, if it is a Vlad, Renekton doesn't lose too hard.
It is a Vlad.
Yeah. I mean, but not in the top lane.
No, of course. It's going to be Shen, 528 Shen. Here we go again. And Thresh, actually last pick, a champion that has been a high ban priority, especially in game number 1, but in the OPL as well. Thresh easily locked in as last pick, and it will be responded by the Brom.
And it almost looked kind of weird to see that Thresh went through to almost the last rotation. You prioritize the Elise, makes sense, and you get the Caitlyn. Sure, you don't want your ADC pull to be banned.
And then the Thresh?
And then the Vladimir? It doesn't really make sense when you want to pick into that rotation. But yeah, the Thresh comes out at the very end. Nobody really banned it away. Nobody saw it on Abyss Academy. No. That could have potentially been the last thing that they took off the map. But Thresh happens to be on the board. Thresh Caitlyn, one of the most potent lanes, simply because Caitlyn puts down a trap and Thresh manipulates the enemy onto it.
I feel like we're going to have a massive team fight in this game, Preacher. I feel like both of these games have just been down to, okay, let's have this one big fight that dictates the game. Kind of feels like the LPL a little bit, but we're not going to go there. But the Varus Brom lane down in the bottom lane with Caitlyn Thresh feels like it's very adhesive, but one jungle game can get that lane going.
Yeah, and that's what they want to play towards. Now, Varus is actually seen as one of the traditional counters to Caitlyn. Generally, when people say, that guy's got 650 range, how do I counter it? You've got an Ezreal with a Mystic Shot, and you've also got a Varus who can use his piercing
with the
arrow.
utility ultimate.
But here's my one criticism of Varus in the current meta. You don't go for the lethality build anymore. You go for either the Essence Reaver or you go for straight damage in terms of double crit or Blade the Ruined King. But either way that you spin it, you're not going for that lethality. It's not your piercing arrow that's going to be carrying you through games. And that's a downside for him because you invest 5 points into that ability early on. And then when you get into that mid-game team fight, when you got a point in everything else, you got 5 points in your queue, you got to be wondering, I'm disabling my auto attacks in order to cast my Q, or I'm not using my Q that I just invested 5 points into. Doesn't really work out for me either way.
Sounds a little bit salty about lethality there. Someone misses old Varus.
I do miss old Varus, but it's sort of the condition that it's not the most optimal thing, but you still do have Varus Ultimate, which is a whole lot more useful than Caitlyn's.
Understandable why the Varus may or may not be picked there, but of course that ultimate I always brag on about is the same kind of thing as Ashe, a little bit closer in range, but of course can...
multiple people.
Yeah, look, the chains of corruption can spread. And can
realistically,
like
you're never meant to hit other people with it. It's a zoning tool. It's to make sure that once you hit somebody who is the center focus of the enemy team, like for instance, you get a straight line into the mid laner or the ADC late game in a team fight, then everybody has to scatter from their back line, which means moving into your team. And that's what they're hoping to go for.
And of course, these team compositions, like we said, looking for those big fights. You've got the Vladimir, you have the Orianna. Big ultimates there following up with the damage could be the decider in these fights. And I'm expecting to go to that mid to late game stage where we just see one big moment for both these teams and potentially setting up those mid laners.
Now, when you take a look over at the composition of Abyss Academy, one thing that really sticks out and screams as a point of potential flaw for their team that could be exploited by Athletico Esports is the fact that they can't run a 1-3-1 composition. Orianna is not somebody who does very well in a solo lane. She doesn't have a lot of potential to get out of multi-man situations to really outplay the enemy in a 1v1.
Press W or walk faster.
Doesn't really work out any way, shape, or form. So that could definitely be one of the huge downsides for them. You've got a Shen on Athletico Esports side who can, of course, split push. There's no real other way to play that champion. You've also got a Vladimir who holds very well in a solo lane. So that could be one of the ways that they simply pincer and press into the enemy. If they continue to press down these lanes, that could be a lot of hidden pressure.
Yeah, I think you talk about the pressure that these comps can allocate. I'm still really worried about, the team composition of Athletico maybe not getting off the ground in that top side of the map. I mean, Abyss, they are tried and tested. They have Kuden. They have Frey. There are two really experienced members on that map. The bottom side of the map may take advantage of the fact that Gunkrab and Bwak, not the most experienced players in the Athletico Esports lineup, whereas the top side will flourish, and it's just a case of who sits higher on the ladder, who's going to carry harder, and who's going to really decimate the enemy team.
Yeah, and thank you very much for bringing up that point because I just wanted to talk about the actual individual matchups of all of these people. You've got a priority lane in the top lane for Abyss Academy. You've also got that priority in the mid, Orianna versus Vladimir. Extremely short range. Vladimir pretty much won't be able to trade any damage over in the laning phase 1v1. And down onto the bottom side, just said, Varus is a very traditional counter over to Caitlyn. So all three of these lanes, theoretically, should be pushing towards for the side of Abyss Academy. And that just gives so much free reign for the jungle to simply go into the middle of the enemy jungle, disrupt a whole lot of things. You don't even need to take camps away. Just make sure that you simply disrupt them. And that's what they want to go for. If they can disrupt the early game to make sure that the jungler never gets off the ground with 3 priority lanes, it's really hard to recover.
Do you think the Orianna Shockwave is an easier to execute ability than you think Vladimir may be kiting back and getting the Hemoplague?
I mean, it might be a little difficult to get the multi-man Shockwave onto this team. Like I did mention, one of the things they can't do is respond to a 1-3-1. And if Athletico decide to do for the 1-3-1, guess what? By sheer numbers, the most you can get in a Shockwave is 3 people. So that's not going to work out too well for them.
That's still like 2k elo, isn't it? 3k elo?
No, you got to bump that down to about 1k elo.
1k?
Yeah.
Man, have you been watching too much Faker and all you see now is like, I want a 5-man?
Yeah, I mean, I'm simply not impressed anymore. And into a 3-man group that's trying to respond to you when you get onto the map, it's not optimal.
Yeah, look, sometimes, we just want too much in life, but you could ask for that in this game number 2 of the OCS for today. Well, at least week number 1. Athletico Esports taking on Abyss Academy. Potentially our top 2 teams take to the Rift and look to at least take position up number 1.
So this is actually really odd because we were talking almost endlessly about the potential that Athletico Esports had to run a 1-3-1, but then all of a sudden Bedoink comes out with the left-right goodnight and takes Ignite instead of TP, instead of Ghost, either of the two.
So is Frey. Of course, against a Vladimir, you would, like, who would,
Yeah,
you know?
of course. It's very standard for Frey, and he's even probably going to go for a Morello's, that's my bet, as a first rush to make sure that Vladimir gets that reduced healing even more with Grievous Wounds. But Bedoink going for the Ignite, that's not going to work out for him. Yeah, sure, you can kill your lane, but you're going into an Orianna who outranges you at all points of the game. If you go in for a Q and E trade, you know what Orianna's going to do? She's going to Q you, she's going to W you, she's going to E the ball back to her. She's just got to come out with more HP.
And we're going to have to keep an eye on it. I mean, mid lane was the primary focus anyway, and we stipulate that this is the win condition for both teams. Getting these mid laners off the ground, just getting past that 30-minute mark and doing tons of damage. Preacher. He enjoyed that one, trust me, he did. He didn't say anything, but he enjoyed it. There's going to be a deep
wholly
board
in my laughter.
dropped by Athletico Esports. Oh, that's good. Someone has to. Athletico Esports will actually spot out the Raptor start with 5 to 8. Oh, yes. Here we go. Wait.
Here we go.
Pap rise. Oh, we got him. All right, attack speed as well.
1, 2, 3, left, right, good night.
The Shen main Preacher right here. He's happy to...
That's literally the only cheese that you have when you go for a Shen, because a lot of top laners actually leash the Raptors start for their junglers because they have a lot of AoE. They don't want the mid laner to do it, or it just helps out a little bit more. Paprise walks back over through the Tri-Brush. Why wouldn't you? It's the most optimal situation to walk back, and then 5 to 8 just trades it all on.
Yeah, of course, but it will be a red start by Dan Dane, who's walking up. He has taken the Raptors, level 2. Not really that much mana, but will probably just sit in Spider Form and do the blue buff.
And one thing that I really want to watch out for Dan Dane is if he gets level 3 off of this blue buff. Because if he gets level 3, then what it means is that he's actually running 1 experience quint, which a lot of junglers are actually doing in competitive. That 1 extra experience quint means you get the cheese level 3 on 1 shorter camp, which is massive. Because when we're talking about early game, 1 camp is like 30 seconds. You get to gank a whole 30 seconds faster. He's hit 3. He might be going for either an evade or a gank.
Now he's in the top side river. Looks like Scuttle Crab will be priority for now. Secures that one down and has blue and red with the double buff. Does he do anything with it? No, just goes to the Gromp, I feel.
Ooh. And you almost feel as if that's wasted potential, because the only reason why junglers choose to take that extra experience quint is not to level up against Swaith to make sure that you're above the Kha'Zix in terms of level, is for the early ganks.
Death lands down bottom. BWAC helping get the root onto Kuden. Will take a bit of early damage, but the Relic Shield will help him heal up.
It's not going to be too much of an interactive lane. I mean, double Relic Shield, it just means they're going to be staying up on more or less
full health. They're both going to press Q.
Yeah, they're both going to press Q, but at the end of the day,
sometimes,
if you take a look at the two supports, Brom's just going to block out a hook by Thresh. Thresh is going to hit the Brom. Nobody's going to engage each other. Hunky-dory, back to standard.
But Doink is at half health, but I'm sure the transfusion press it. There we go. He's going to heal back up to a quarter. And Frey still pushing out this lane. Very nicely indeed, but it's still even in farm, still even in CS. No real disparity across the map just yet. I think the mid lane is going to be the one we focus on this game, especially because of the jungle pressure that can be alleviated or can be added towards Bedoink or Frey. Now, Frey, of course, having that OPL experience is definitely the one people are sitting at home and saying, yes, this guy can do a lot. Like right now, Bedoink taking 3 autos, Frey pushing him out of lane. I think Bedoink has to back.
Yeah, he has to. He's already used the 1 potion that he gets with Doran's shield, and he has to go back because he needs to respect the sheer amount of pressure that's coming out of Frey. No, he actually decides to stay. He just canceled his back, so he might cancel the second one. One thing that you got to watch out for, especially...
no, the cannon! The cannon!
He doesn't get it! No!
Feels bad.
All right, so what I wanted to talk about the mid lane matchup is that clearly you see the health bars of Frey, you compare it to Bedoink, you say Frey's coming out ahead. But early game, when there's no mana regen at all, generally what happens is Vladimir is trading a bit of his health for the entire mana bar of the enemy laner. And Orianna, extremely mana-hungry champion, if they never go back and if they keep on staying in lane, then that can only favor Bedoink with time.
You can see the warding priority on these Raptors. I mean, Bedoink did drop that ward earlier, I believe, and there has been a lot of, I guess, follow-up on that jungle vision, making sure they know where Swaith is. Another hook will land down bottom as BWAC and Gunkrab look for the trades. They will find it, and KO now down to half health.
And that's exactly what I was talking about. Mendrix, you hyped Gunkrab up correctly because he used his headshot so aptly. He had one lined up, used it on KO, and then the trap was stepped on by Kuden. He used that headshot as well. 90 caliber net, another one. That's what you want to see.
Frey has no mana mid. let's come back to the point, all right? Preacher's like, yes, gun crab, and I'm like, yes, mid lane. There's a lot of action.
When I see a good Caitlyn, oh man.
When I say Athletico, you say Abyss. Athletico?
Abyss?
Academy.
Doesn't even work. Doesn't even work.
It doesn't work. We tried. We tried. We've joined the hype train here today, ladies and gentlemen. The OCS has just gone, woo,
Bonkers.
Love it. No, we're back. We're definitely back. Back in force at least.
Back on the rails.
I think Abyss Academy would be happy with how Frey's going in the middle right now. Dane coming down to the bottom lane, has flash, has cocoon, doesn't use the flash. There's the Dense Sentence again, looking for the first blood. The play comes down the route, the ignite, it goes onto Gun Crab, and first blood secured by Athletico.
Well played to the side of Athletico. Even the micro details of BWAC using his flay to get Kuden out of his stand behind me? Is that what it's called? The one that leaps Braum back.
I thought I'd leave you in the...
Yeah, the one that leaps Braum back to Varus. That was actually cancelled by him.
Stand behind me, yes.
Yeah, and then you've even got the trap down. That means he can't flash out of it. And all the bursts coming down from this entire composition. Beautiful to see executed. And I actually really like the fact that Dane came onto the map at 6 minutes 30 seconds. Because if he just kept on farming, if he left the pressure for a little bit more, then he would effectively be doing a race until 6 with Swathe. And we all know that Elise doesn't get any benefit at level 6. However, Swathe does with his ultimate.
Definitely does, and that gank down the bottom is going to alleviate so much pressure. Guncrab getting that first blood, goes back, gets the BF sword to the Vampiric Scepter of KO. Definitely a better back, and it's going to be a really nice early start for this Caitlyn.
Yeah, it's going to be huge for this Caitlyn. That BF sword means that he more or less will have the wave pressure. You take a look over on the other side. It's a Vampiric Scepter. He's going into the Blade of the Ruined King. And that's just not going to be coming online anywhere near. And that's really odd to say. Because when you see Caitlyn's, you just say they don't do anything until they get their 3-item power spike, their Infinity Edge.
60 minutes in the game.
Yeah, you get your Infinity Edge, you get your 2 attack speed items. But having that BF sword means that you get so much lane priority. And we were talking about it already with the mid lane. Now with the bottom lane, you've got to say Caitlyn's the one who scales better with infinite time.
Frey, no mana available, so if the gank comes through and followed up by Dane, he could simply flash over the wall and get the cocoon, but he doesn't go through with it. Badoink's still at half health, but happy to sit there for the time being. Transfusion will be up and available, get that bonus health regen, and Frey having to back now. First back, we'll assume the lost chapter, or at least close to that Morellonomicon.
He's been out for ages.
Yeah, they've been sitting in mid, but I think it will be a nice back for the Orianna to start things off. But you got to remember, when Badoink goes back, does he go that Spectre's Cowl? Does he have 1,200 gold?
He might want to go for it. Nah,
we're not backing.
Spirit Massage isn't something. You know what this mid lane reminds me of? It reminds me of that that thing that you see with the time lapse of 2 men who are just sitting next to each other playing chess through all of the seasons. The whole world is revolving around them, but neither of them want to move away from the status quo. That's what it reminds me of.
I mean, it's pretty much similar. It's pretty much the exact same thing.
Look, it's a gentleman's agreement. They're just farming up occasionally.
When Frey procking him.
Occasionally, when Frey gets a little bit of mana enough to use his Q for the trades, but Badoink just has his transfusion up ready to heal it all up. So they just don't care about this matchup at all.
I mean, Badoink should be so much further behind on CS, but he is holding fast. And Frey has to use all his mana pool. You can see now Badoink gets the trade back and forth. Gets the, I think he's gone for Storm Raider's Surge on the Vladimir.
It doesn't even matter if Frey loses a wave here, because he needs to go back. He definitely needs to go get his first item and also get some mana back for himself.
But he's gotten blue, you know. Badoink will know that the jungle, that Swathe, is in that blue side jungle. It's responded to by Dane. Make sure he can hold that wall of scrimmage by himself. Loses the control ward, and Swathe will drop another ward down in its place. But bottom side seems to be controlled by Abyss right now with the help of Kuden. See how that progresses down there, but only a 200 gold lead for Athletico Esports in this early game with that first blood only just holding fast against the CS lead growing in the mid lane, growing in the top lane, and the jungler as well now looking to grow something else in the mid.
Yeah, so without a doubt, you see Dane on more jungle camps than the enemy and just say, you know what, this is extremely standard for Dane. This is the way he wants to play, but he's actually caught Swathe.
Isolated there, going to have to use a repel, ultimate use, Shen, stand, united, 5-8, unanimous for getting really good Shen ults. As the cocoon misses, it will save Dane's life, and 5-8, Shadow dashes over the wall.
There's a ward to catch him, so as soon as he left vision, you know, Swaith was just saying, oh, he's actually realistic. I should probably back off. But yeah, that was actually really strange to watch because Dan Dane, it almost looked like he was caught off by surprise with the sheer amount of burst that came out from Swaith. Generally, you don't have a bad time going into Kha'Zix 1v1 as Elise because you have your Spiderlings. It means that you're not isolated. But in the mid lane,
forcing the flash, Doink follows it through. Great Sanguine pull.
Think that might be enough.
Is the ignite? Yes, it is. But Doink, the one-on-one with Frey, even cancels the TP from Paprise.
That's what I was talking about, Hysterics. If neither of you two go back, then Vladimir just gets more and more advantage, but in the bottom
Chain of Corruption coming through. Athletico will drop one as well. Great kill by KO with 3 members. They will not pick up BWAC, but the rest of Abyss will continue pushing in the turret.
Yeah, knowing that Dan Dane is extremely low, he didn't go back, but they assumed that he did. They assumed that they wanted to go, and BWAC, what are you doing?
No, well, he's staying around the turret very confidently. In fact, 2 members of Abyss are incredibly low with no mana. They will lose one on the side of Athletico after that great mid lane play. Paprise even starting to walk down. Will be spotted out by a ward, however. What a waste of time. Just leaves the Scuttlecrap there.
Yeah. Really strange to see him go down. There wasn't a good explanation for it at all.
He's 20 CS ahead. I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah. One of the things that I really wanted to mention that happened in the mid lane was the fact that Badoink used both of his summoners going over to Frey.
Yep.
Does get the kill eventually, and that's really the advantage that Vladimir has when you go into an Orianna.
5-8. Paprise is he's following this one up. 5-8 has to be careful. Does it get dove? No, it doesn't. It's just going to be forcing the Shen out of lane further still. And the CS advantage will just continue to grow. Paprise is dominating this lane. He has wasted the TP before, but 5-8 will now have to waste his getting back into lane.
Yeah, it's going to be really punishing for him. Ultimately, if he just wants to walk, but Dan Dane's got to get.
He's going for the 1v1. The isolation isn't enough. The repel into the air. Badoink is here. Dan Dane gets out with his life. There are no summoners available by Badoink. And the help of this duo, you know, you see how well they synergize together. It's so obvious here as Brom will get rooted down. Kuden takes a headshot.
Oh my Gunkrab, you are performing on Caitlyn.
The hype.
This is what I love to see. This is what separates just a standard plug-and-play ADC from the greats who will be remembered in all of time. Now that I am giving you that 10-second spiel, Gunkrab, you cannot go and die in a 2v2.
No, he definitely cannot, especially after you said all that, Preacher. Athletico will start up this Infernal Drake after forcing Kuden back into base. Now, Athletico, first Infernal Drake of their series, will start now. As the smite will miss, doesn't matter, but 5-8.
Oh no, buddy, what are you doing?
There's
no ward. He doesn't know.
Play. Swaith is waiting around the corner. I don't know. I think he was AFK. Who knows? 5-8 will be caught out. Great flash, but can he get away from Swaith? I do not think so here. Dissonance can come through, but no, left alone.
Oh,
Paprise, he gets out. Abyss Academy struggling a little bit here in the early game to sort of finish their plays.
They could have very easily caught him out. Shadow Dash is an 18-second cooldown at rank number 1. That's exactly what 5-8. No, he will be sitting on rank number 2, which is about 16 seconds. It's still extremely long. He doesn't have any cooldown reduction. They could have very easily gone for him, but Dan Dane.
After the cocoon misses there, he's going for the 1v1. Repels there. He's going to go back on Paprise. Stan United is there. He's right beside him. That's 5-8. Dan Dane survives. What is with this Athletico lineup? It's surviving.
I don't understand.
Oh,
there are so many times when Dan Dane should be punished. He's backing.
Tapping the cocoon. Paprise pops the dominance, gets the kill. Now back up in this top lane. Shen is going to be in a bit of trouble. That's 5-8.
There's no way he can
against the turret. Swaith pops the ultimate, goes invisible. Dominance to come back in. Paprise is taking turret. What is happening? What is going on?
That was actually really botched by Abyss Academy. They managed to dive one, get Dan Dane, and it was so well played by Paprise because he actually dodged upwards to make sure that the cocoon didn't land. But
BWAC, the god. There's the Chains of Corruption there, going to be laid with the Brom ultimate as well. One more hit for the concussive blows. All it would take. Great 90 caliber net from Gunkrab will avoid that piercing arrow.
No, so unfortunately couldn't use his ultimate a little bit too early in this bottom lane. If he waited until Caitlyn started the animation of the lantern and then used the ulti, she's caught out. She doesn't have 90 caliber net. She has a flash, which you would force her to burn. But even then, you can get a whole lot of damage down onto her while she is knocked up in the air. You could have potentially killed her in that instance. Just went a little bit gung-ho and used his ultimate off.
Gung-ho. Yeah. Gunkrab gung-ho.
Unfortunate, didn't work out for them.
No, just...
It was very easily outplayable. They did.
Yeah, no. I understand. Thank you very much. Jimmy Preacher. Oh, it's great to be back. I miss casting so much. Especially games like this. I mean, let's be honest, it's a little bit messy. A little bit messy there.
Just a little bit? This is like when you go into your kitchen and you just wonder, I don't even have a roommate. Who cooked here?
Okay, 15 minutes in, 2 kills across the board. Abyss Academy only have a small goal lead there. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
I got nothing to say on
You've
that one.
grown some really good jokes since we left last split, but another blue buff will be picked up by Frey here in the mid lane. But still actually caught up on CS, so really impressive from this Vladimir. After getting that first kill, he's gone pro to belt, and it will be Dan just picking up his wolves, but spotted out by Scry's Bloom. Now, Swetheris, he's going to be sitting.
He's literally on top of a ward.
That's right. So bottom lane, I mean, this dive is to be expected, but
Dane's coming along.
Are they backing away from this?
No, because they want to bait this one out. They want Swayth to take it. Take a look at Dan. He's coming down slowly, but they've got enough room for him.
Athletico have to be expecting this dive. There's going to be a lens that I think was a little bit too late. I think Dan safe here.
Yeah,
They don't know he's here. Brom's walking in. It's Kuden. Who's going to take the cocoon? It's going to be Kuden. There's the death sentence. It lands, coming in double man play with the box around it. Dan will not take the chains of corruption, but it will spread eventually. Repel, ignite. Kha'Zix runs away. Ace in the hole. Kaboom goes Swayth. And Athletico's bottom lane plays it perfectly, but Dan
it's not over.
Is not done. Cocoon will be back up and available. Here comes TP. It's Paprise to come right into the fray. And here's Bedoink from the backline. Where'd he come from? The Hemoblade. The Brom will be way too late with the Bronabel, with the follow-up. Athletico seem to be more on point as they pick up yet another kill. Frey's here. The action is not done. We're still going. Frey has Shockwave available.
Oh, no.
We'll use it onto Bedoink, but there's the Stand United. The Ignite to stop all kinds of healing, and Frey will pick up the return.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate to see. The Stand United may have been enough. Unfortunately, BWAC wasn't on the same page as him. He thought that Bedoink was going to go through their jungle in order to make sure that he doesn't take any turret shots, doesn't tank it for his buddy. And Bedoink just happens to fall to a turret when nobody else is really surviving around him. So Frey coming in to pick up a kill off of the backside of that, but it was still really well played to Athletico all in all. And it just started with the Elise coming down, because as soon as the Kha'Zix was sitting on a ward, everybody was frantically pressing that button. Yeah, just saying, you know what, guys? Swayth is down here. We need some backup, and we need it pronto. And then all of a sudden, Dan comes out as a response and just says, yes, confirm that, Central. I am indeed making my way down into the bottom lane to give you some assistance. Roger that. T-minus 30 seconds. Comes straight down into the bottom side. Sweeps the brush. Makes sure that he's not spotted out in any way, shape, or form. And it just goes botched for this academy.
I mean, honestly, exactly as you said there, that was exactly how it happened in their minds. But the biggest thing we have to note here is the fact that Abyss are still rotating around the map. They send Frey. Rift Herald looks to be finally done the first time in split number 2 of the OCS. And Abyss are going to take this one out unless it is spotted. I don't think there's really any chance of anyone finding this out, as Dan is in base. This way that Paprise will secure this Rift Herald and potentially get a free objective off it. They've already got that first turret, which is giving them that advantage. They get the Rift Herald now, going to go to Swayth, potentially see where that one is dropped. If they just drop it mid and try and get Bedoink less comfortable in his lane.
Yeah, and that's the downside of being so comfortable as a 3-man unit on Athletico Esports. You just trust 528 to hold his own. You don't really expect him to solo kill. You don't really expect him to get dived either by a Renekton, because of course you are a Shen. You can technically outplay that with your Spirit's Refuge if you time it correctly under your own turret. But the downside of that is that Dan's pretty much just left top lane to the wolves. He hasn't visited the top side of his jungle in what appears to be years. So practically he's just left the Rift Herald completely unwarded.
Oh no, but he's focused on bottom again, and Kuden has to force a flash. Great death sentence. BWAC, has he ever missed this game? I don't think so. Gunkrab will pick up his 4th kill. Ult forced out a Swayth in the mid lane, and Bedoink challenging this Kha'Zix very, very deeply, but still 1 kill for Athletico Esports, and I think they'll finally break open that bottom turret with their first objective, or second objective of the game.
Yeah, so they've finally managed to break down that bottom turret. It means it frees up Gunkrab to really move around the map, hopefully absorb a whole lot of that mid lane wave, which gives Bedoink time and pressure to go down onto the bottom lane, make sure that he can get a whole lot of that splish push potential that Frey cannot go against. But here comes a Rift Herald.
It's going to be charging in. Hemoplague is used against 2 members. Flash forced away by Frey.
You can't fight this.
And
They need to deal with it.
No, I mean, it will do a lot of chip damage on this turret.
It might finish it.
But it doesn't finish it down. There is still a couple of hits left, which Abyss Academy can take full advantage of. But Athletico still playing this reasonably better than the Abyss Academy lineup.
Yeah, and that was really unfortunate to see. The use of the Rift Herald, it seemed so good in the mines, but it just wasn't executed to perfection. It was actually really well reacted by Bedoink. He knew that there was no way he was going to clear out any amount of that Rift Herald's health. Just one hit on the eye, and that's the maximum amount of thing that he could have possibly done towards that monster. So what does he do? He drops his ultimate on the enemy team. He goes down into Hemo Plague, and he actually walks forward, even though he's on low health, because he says, you guys have to back off, make sure that you're not really supporting your Rift Herald, and then that gives us breathing room to take it down before it takes down our turret. And
I think that the Abyss lineup there will be struggling with that decision, not taking that turret down. Rooted down is Bedoink, but Stand United has come through. Vladimir is behind the shield. Teleport is going to be matched, but the Shen, who only has the Titanic Hydra, not as tanky as you would like. Athletico will get out, but ultimate's used, a summoner as well by KO, as well as the exhaust. It is just forcing those summoners, forcing those abilities out of Abyss Academy.
Yeah, Abyss Academy is certainly losing out of this. If nobody dies, then it's really their game to lose because they have to use a teleport, they have to use the heal as well, and they don't get anything out of it. Yep. So still, they are losing out on all of this. And take a look at this. Vladimir is now rotating up to the top side because Shen is down onto the bottom side. If they don't really spot this out, he could make a cheeky play in the mid.
See what happens. Abyss Academy still prioritizing that vision. You can see Control Ward there, but Doink may have been caught out. Use the program, but stunned forward. Hemo Plague and the heal by Gunkrab will give him back half of his health. Athletico botched a play there in the bottom side river, but will be walking up to top side. Abyss Academy may have an opportunity to finally break this mid outer turret.
Yeah, this gives them a whole lot of breathing room, and Athletico know it. They want to defend this to within an inch of their life, and they're moving every single resource they potentially can. Gunkrab is here. Dan Dane is here. Now let's see how the defense goes. They got a Caitlyn, they got a trap line, so they've got that working towards them.
Yeah, I mean, the ball may just zone them out enough. Paprise comes in for an auto attack. Shockwave whiffs, but it's good enough for zone control. I guess it's a zoning ult, if you want to call it that, but the outer turret finally goes down mid, and Abyss Academy will lead by 2,000 gold.
Yeah, and they're on the map, which means that not only have they got that extra gold that was latent in the turret, but it also means that they can start moving around. It means that you can go into the enemy jungle, traverse through the mid lane to make it onto the other side, and nobody's really going to stop you for it. Nobody can potentially punish you, and also the ward line is a whole lot more expensive to upkeep on the side of Athletico. They might want to try and get some sort of response by getting a turret, but with this team composition, it doesn't look like they can do it anytime fast, especially not 1-3.
I'm still waiting for the pick, you know, from Bivouac again. I mean, the guy's been landing his hooks all game. Athletico Esports really relying on the engage from this stretch, from this Elise, and now the lineup will be getting out Bedoink. I think he's been caught out again. 2 members. The isolation come through with the Glacial Fissure to lock down Bedoink. He gets stunned down and will go down isolated. Swayth picks up the kill, but it's at the cost of a Cloud Drake.
And it's just a Cloud Drake. When you take a look at the whole scheme of this team, none of them can really utilize it that well. You got an Elise who generally wants to run after she's used a repel, which means she's already in combat. Vladimir is literally always going to be in combat, or as he's losing HP. You got a Caitlyn who's got so much long range that she theoretically should never stop trying to poke or trying to find advantages throughout the map. And 5-8, by the time he uses his ultimate, sorry buddy, you're not running anytime fast. So it wasn't a worthwhile trade, and Bedoink shouldn't have been on the top side.
But I do think if Athletico, you know, if Bedoink stops getting caught out, if Athletico can push this back, go into the later game stages where you have a Vladimir and you have a Caitlyn, for God's sake. Like, you also have the Shen.
Yep.
I feel like, you know, the Athletico lineup will be happy taking this to 40 minutes with no more than maybe a 5k gold disadvantage.
Yeah, and you forgot to mention, but there's a fight.
Or maybe they're going to force now. I guess the Chains of Corruption lands onto Dan Dane. The passage, it gets him to safety, but meanwhile, in the bottom lane, turret goes down. The Stand United onto Gunkrab. He gets Shockwave in, and it does hit a shutdown. That's big for a bit. They're turning the fight. One more auto attack onto Dan Dane, but Bedoink gets cut in. 3-man Hemo Plague as Kuden does get the kill. Will he find KO? Not this time. The Ignite goes down, but not to finish off the kill. And Athletico make one mistake too many with 3 members hitting the dirt.
So that's exactly what Athletico wanted to do in that situation. Take a look at the wards that are currently present in the enemy jungle from them. You got one on the top side, which spotted out 5-8. You've also got Bivouac, who was not there at an apt amount of time. So all in all, they knew that the best that they could do was a 3v5. They get the advantage and go into the Baron.
And this Baron is going to go down so easily to Abyss Academy. Nothing Bivouac can do to try and steal that away. And after one botch play, after one big misstep, Athletico Esports walk in a little too deep into that jungle, and Abyss Esports know exactly how to react. Abyss Academy, sorry. We'll get used to it eventually, but now it's it seems like the Baron's been taken. It seems like with the Renekton, they're going to run that 1-4 and have Frey pretty much set up all these fights.
Yeah, and you really got to be wondering as Athletico, why did you want to make that play when you're doing the 1-3-1? First and foremost, nobody was even in position to do the 1-3-1, but second of all, you knew that the whole enemy team was grouped there as a 5-man unit, and Gunkrab was a person who was free-firing on the enemy team. 528 uses ultimate on Gunkrab. I don't believe he even managed to channel it because Gunkrab just died before he managed to pop out on the other side. Unfortunately, doesn't get to be Superman in that instance, and they just don't get a whole lot for their troubles.
And it does feel like it's still a topsy-turvy game and that Athletico can still hold on, but Athletico Esports right now probably need to just stay clear of Abyss Academy, not force any fights. We've got a 7k gold disadvantage, and Abyss Academy happy to push this one down, at least force some kind of 1-4. Frey, if you can find another shockwave, you can find another pick. Abyss Academy definitely able to open up this base 25 minutes into the game. No Dragon achieved for them just yet, but a 25-minute Baron, sorry, 23-minute Baron, if I want to be specific about it, can create quite a big power play.
Yeah, and they actually look like they want to push the bottom side of the map in tandem with Paprise pushing the top side. They've already got amazing siege with the Varus being able to poke out with the zoning potential that Frey has with his ultimate. It's something that they definitely want to take to the enemy team. We already saw it siege down the mid-outer turret, and they're trying to go for it again down onto the bottom side very slowly. If the Baron was the nail in the coffin, then what they're doing right now is hammering it every single time they crash a wave into the turret.
That's right, and look at the gold on your screen right there. There's 3,000 between both top and mid. That 6k gold advantage pretty much is just created by 2 solo lanes. And of course the Baron will give 1,500 gold. That's 300 to each person on Summoner's Rift. So you're going to hope that you get a couple of turrets and that you create a power play more than 1,500. Otherwise, Abyss Academy haven't pushed the envelope far enough. Athletico have the wave clear to clear this bottom wave, but after a bit of chip damage and after a lot of kill pressure from Abyss Academy, they have to be scarce.
Yeah, and sure, they can clear these waves. It's not impossible for the side of Athletico to do so, but you got to take a look at the cannon that can shoot from long range whenever somebody is nearby to accompany it. You also got to take a look at the poke that comes out from KO and also the zoning from Frey. They got to be constantly careful and diligent about that, because they walk a little bit too far. If they start to disrespect it just a little bit, then that's the thing that's going to come back and bite them.
Top lane is really hard right now for 528. I mean, Paprise has a 2-level advantage with the Baron buff and with that extra item as well. And KO's just been left to this bottom lane with Blade of the Wrong King. Where is the rest of the team?
What?
They've just given up the turret.
Everybody on Athletico just said we need to go mid and we need to defend it, because obviously that's where the 4-man unit is going to go. Duh, they can't do a 1-3-1. Unfortunately, Abyss call their bluff and actually do run the 1-3-1. They leave KO into the bottom side. Everybody else goes onto the top side. There was a ward there that Athletico could have realistically pulled the trigger on, but unfortunately, they just say that Varus must be the sneakiest person in the history of League of Legends. He walked around the longest side possible to avoid that ward. No, he just stayed bottom side and he got a turret.
I mean, all in all, it feels like Abyss Academy do pick up that one objective, but you've got to look at the gold again. It is only an 8k gold lead. Only, I say? Yes, I know. But Athletico Esports were down about 6,500, 7,000 when this Baron buff was taken, and now that it's almost run out by Abyss Academy, they've only really capitalized by about 1,000 gold. So Athletico Esports are very far behind right now. But all it takes is one execution of a good team fight, a 5-man, and that Shen ulti coming through. And you can see that the Caitlyn, with free hitting, could potentially make this game. Abyss Academy know this. They have to be careful, because in the later portions of this game, there is that comeback mechanic for Athletico Esports.
Yeah, they've always got that in the 1-3-1. Once again, the downside is the fact that there's no TP on the Vladimir, so you've got to watch out for that. But watch this.
Oh no, he goes in with Dark Passage, doesn't steal away. Thought he's just going to let it, bygones be bygones, but Abyss Academy securing their first dragon of the game, which will be an Infernal. 8%, you said?
Yeah, 8%. It's going to be massive.
I thought it was
for
6.
No, and one thing that you also got to keep in mind when you take a look at that Infernal for the whole squad is that was also killed by the Baron.
Yeah.
So even though Baron buff was down by the time they did that, they shoved out bottom lane, they shoved in mid wave as well, and they just had so much pressure down onto the top side with Paprise constantly splitting there. Pretty much got a free dragon off of the Baron as well. You should count that into the Baron play as uncounted gold.
And of course, it's almost a 10k gold lead now in Abyss Academy, trying to strangle out Athletico Esports, which they're doing quite well. We did compliment their ability to sort of make it back if they can get the right fight, but right now it feels like it's falling further and further out of sorts, with Abyss Academy trying to end their first game of week number 1. Their only game of week number 1, I should say, but start this split off very, very strong. And with a player like Frey and Kuden who want to get back into the OPL. You can see why they're in it in the first place.
Yeah, and you kind of got to take a look at Abyss Academy and see where they want to go from this point onwards, because they got the massive gold advantage. They might just want to do the 1-4 they've been running all along, except instead of simply try to get turrets, what they want to do is they want to get some picks and they want to get some kills off it. It might be a little bit difficult to execute because their pick potential isn't the best in the world, but of course you do have a Varus who can who can always flash in and use his Chains of Corruption. Extremely risky, mind you, as an ADC, but he's got that little bit of extra safety because Braum can jump onto him for the extra resistance, unbreakable up and just block everything that comes towards him. On the other side though, if Athletico Esports gets that little bit of time that allows him to scale further and further throughout the game, you gotta be considering that the ticking time bomb of a Vladimir on massive build, of a Caitlyn on massive build, of a Shen split pushing ability late game with a Titanic Hydra as well, and with the 2 CC bots of 40% cooldown reduction, a Dandane, and also Thresh, they've got a whole lot to do in terms of punching the clock.
Yeah, but how much further can they fall behind before not even being able to execute, you know, that composition? You know, how much will this gold affect them coming into late game? Because Baron's up and available in 30 seconds. This next Baron gets taken by Abyss Academy. It feels like they'll finally be able to break the base. There is only so much wave clear you can have on the Athletico lineup that can deal with the strength of the Orianna, of the Renekton right now, and of the mid-game power drop that Abyss Academy are taking full advantage of.
Yeah, and right then, you just saw the primer for what Abyss Academy wanted to do. Because if they can walk into the enemy jungle and take a blue completely uncontested, sure, Contestia blue is vastly different from Contestia Baron, but the sheer fact that they can do so with absolutely, literally no response at all, a control ward on top of it, clear out the control ward as well, it doesn't bode very well for Athletico. They might be extremely hesitant for the next fight to come, but if Abyss bait this Baron rather than try and take it, rather than try and start it, this could really work out well for them.
And they're doing exactly that. They're baiting around the vision in this pit as Baron is now live and available. Abyss Academy, after clearing out a couple of wards, do they start this up? I feel like they might. I feel like they might start it up, and Athletico have to just pick up the pieces and wonder, okay, what's it at? Can we go in? Do we contest? Are they baiting? It's mind games.
They can start it up, but they need to do it with 2 conditions. The first one is Kuden's the person tanking, and the second one is none of them use any abilities. Because if they have anything on cooldown and Athletico decide to engage, then that is the thing that effectively swings the game around. And Swathe,
he's
you're
taking
on half
it.
HP.
You're exactly right. If Kuden's not tanking it, then this makes a detrimental Baron play, as it will get started up and it is getting bursted down. And it feels like the rotation wasn't quick enough. Dandane trying to come in.
What?
He's done it! Dandane's done it, and Athletico will lose their jungler, but the steal to come through, and Dandane, the god, returns to split number 2.
You are kidding me! Look at how much time Dandane just bought for the rest of his team. That Baron is going to be lasting and making sure that none of their structures fall for the next 4 minutes. That is bonkers.
Dandane 0-3-4 scraped the score and put it on the floor as we see that Baron still come through. And man, that's got to have some feel. Dandane's Elise, he will be coming up in 15 seconds. Then they can reward him. Athletico, 4 members with Baron. They can hold out. They can delay this game. And we talked about a condition which could further back that Athletico Esports just go, hey, what are we going to see now? What are we going to see now? We're going to see Athletico take a Baron and hold out.
Yeah, they don't need to push anything with it. That's not their MO. That's not their win condition. They don't need to go aggressive. If they want to, they've got the pick potential with the Thresh, with the Elise, and with the Caitlyn, all of the traps as well. But they don't need to. Realistically, all they need to do is hold their own, make sure that none of their structures take a single point of damage for about 4 minutes into the game, and that gives them so much leeway to scale up. Take a look at how far Caitlyn has progressed in her build. Guncraft, 4-0, might be a picture.
Dandane has to be careful. The repel comes in.
Wow,
2
that was
members are going to
smart.
encroach up. Yeah, they are just alleviating a little bit of pressure, but the turret goes down in the top lane. 5-8 will use the minion wave and push Paprise out. It's getting to the point where Renekton is doing no damage against this Shen. Level 17 versus level 18. It's like the level doesn't matter right now. Guncraft is caught out. Flash Dark Passage comes through and the cocoon to secure it. Varus ult was used as well as a death sentence. But Abyss Academy are trying to force this fight or at least get the pick, but Shockwave is down. Double summoner used for the Caitlyn. I think Abyss Academy can securely prep for this Infernal Drake.
So one thing that I really want to point out that not a lot of people would have caught in that last fight is that Gunkrab was effectively a dead man. But pretty much what he did in this instance was he was knocked up in the air with the shockwave, and then all of a sudden you have the cleanse come out with the QSS instantly, and then he takes the lantern.
The Corkuden, they forced the flash. The Descendants come through again. The Infernal Drake helping out as Abyss Academy will try and find the stun. They bring in the Renekton. It's going to be Shen. It's 5 to 8 who has to flash away. He lives for now. Karthik goes in, but he's gone way too deep. Sway forced the fight with Badoink. This could be the really big one. As Abyss Academy, 2-man shockwave, and they still have what it takes. They're forcing way too early, and Abyss Academy wiping the floor with Athletico Esports. 4 down. Dandayan this time will be the one to survive, but big death timers for Abyss Academy to work with.
And that was just hook, line, and sinker. Athletico walked straight into the trap provided by Abyss. All of the front line of the Braum, of the Renekton was ready and poised to strike the entire team of Athletico Esports. What do? They send the squishiest member in of Swaith. So Swaith gets taken down, everybody collapses on top of him, and then the AoE comes through with the entire team composition. This could very well be game.
And they are not letting Dandayan back. The first Nexus turret will start getting chipped down. A big shockwave, as they like to call it. And a massive team fight for Abyss Academy will result in this Nexus getting chipped down. It was Athletico with the steal, but at the end of the day, it was Abyss Academy who bring it on home.
And big Pathrise, the silent protagonist throughout this entire game that we just did not really hit on at all. He did his work flawlessly. He took it all the way to 5 to 8 in that top lane, in that bottom lane as well when he was split pushing, and he just really never let go. A Renekton, a champion who's really just known for his late game, early game, late game, he turns into a bit of a tank, a bit of a dud in terms of what he does. He managed to keep up the pressure and never really let go from minute 1.
It felt like Abyss Academy, had control in that middle stage of the game. The Baron still to shake things up, but it was that one team fight, like we said in Champ Select, which changed the face of the game, Mendrix.
Yeah, really, Abyss Academy just grabbed that advantage, went straight to the Baron, and just snowballed off it. They were able to exert pressure everywhere, get all the objectives they need, and with that control that they managed to build up, that is essentially what won them the game. And I really do also want to touch on their team compositions. These guys, what they've managed to do here, you have your typical 1-3-1 composition, your typical cool 1-4. This is the best thing any sort of semi-professional team, any professional team really trying to make their mark can do. You get one of these going, you know what, I want to be a 1-3-1. I want to be a 1-4. You practice that all the way through, you will win games. Yeah. And these guys already have the making of it.
Yeah, and that's just the thing, right? Because when you go back to the compositions, you also got to take a look at what are the checks and what are the counters for everything available on both of these two teams. Yeah, it's very naive to just say that Vladimir and that Caitlyn is going to be a ticking time bomb, and as we get to 6 items, as we get to late game when gold is irrelevant and you just have full build, then they're going to be the ones carrying the team. How's Caitlyn meant to output damage when you're into a Varus, somebody who can use the Chains of Corruption to lock you down and you just die? How are you going to do damage when a Braum can knock you up with his ultimate and you just die? How are you going to do damage when there's Frey with his shockwave and you only have one rapid fire cannon to hit him outside of that distance? So all of that, while Caitlyn does scale up, it seems as if it was perfectly checked and counted in Champ Select.
And maybe if they delayed the game a little bit more, Mendrix.
I'll tell you how. Exactly right. They have to delay that game, and it really does come down to them not giving up those mid-game skirmishes, those team fights that are so big that led to the Baron. If they're able to do that, all of a sudden, when it does get to those big team fights towards the late game, they're not dealing as much damage. That Braum ultimate is not as effective. All of a sudden, Caitlyn can survive a little bit longer to actually put out that damage. And I really like the team composition that was actually put together by Athletico Esports.
Yep.
What they had there was essentially the pseudo-protect the Vladimir composition. The fact that they had the Shen ultimate and the fact that when Vlad, yes, you know what, he's not a tipping. You can say that. It's very easy to say he is a ticking time bomb. Well, guess what? He is a ticking time bomb. And when you add a Shen protecting him at the very end of those big team fights at 40 minutes, he's an absolute menace. But Abyss Academy had full control. They could never get there.
It seems like they knew how to play their composition a little bit more. It seems like Athletico Esports just struggled to find, okay, what is our win condition? And it's not as cut as dry for them as maybe let's just wait until we get to ultra late game that maybe the Orianna Shockwave will change things. Maybe the Renekton will be too much of a harasser. Maybe the Caitlyn won't be able to get past that Braum. And I guess it's that communication and that feeling of knowing how to construct your team composition that starts in the pick and ban phase, the draft phase, that maybe Athletico Esports could work on.
Yeah, and one of the things that was really bare from their team composition was a really defined engage. Because who's going to engage? But Doink, no, everybody starts focusing him. Grievous Wounds goes down on the Vladimir, and all of a sudden his value inside the whole team composition goes down drastically. 5 to 8, sorry mate, he's a Shen. He reacts to fights. He doesn't really start them. He goes in after the fact that it's already started. And Dan Dane, no, it's just not going to happen.
Definitely not. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have a 5-minute break, however, but when we return, we are going to have Alpha Sydney versus Corvidae as our game number 3 of today. So do not go anywhere. Myself, Jimmy Preacher Fu, and Nathan Mendrix Mendez. I pointed the right way this time.
Yes.
I'm learning, guys. We'll be back in 5 minutes.